Hello and welcome to this episode of The Sovereign Shift. I'm your host, Chelsea Eden Dubois, and today I had the privilege of speaking with Jacintha Field, who is a family and child counselor, an art therapist, and the founder of Happy Souls Kids, a global mental health platform helping children aged 5 to 12 regulate their big feelings through storytelling, gamified tools, and the voices of athletes and role models they admire. After walking through the fire of domestic violence, solo parenting, and emotional burnout, Jacintha retrained in counseling, play therapy, and somatic healing to support her son through anxiety and dysregulation when services weren't available. What began as survival became service, a private practice that's grown into a mission to reach 100,000 children by 2027. We had a really interesting conversation about motherhood, technology, and so much about emotional regulation and what we can do as parents to help our children on their journey as well. Jacintha is just very inspirational as a counselor. Her mission is a big one, and she's started, of course, her own application. So if you're interested, I'd encourage you to listen the whole way through to hear more about what her application is going to look like and what it's going to do. I personally think that the world needs more apps that are safe spaces for children and families. I've long talked about the dangers and the lack of safeties that are available on social media and on the internet in general. And so we had a really good conversation about some of those aspects as well. So as always, before you jump in, I just invite you to drop into yourself. Take that deep breath in through the nose, fill the belly, the chest, the upper lobes of the lungs, and just let that breath out low and slow through the mouth. And you can do this a couple more times just as you get ready to receive this transmission, this conversation. And I think if you're a mom, definitely this is going to resonate. And of course, if you're a single mom, co-parenting mom, and navigating that phase of life as well, this is for you. And so, with that, drop in, take care of yourself, and I'll see you on the flip side. Welcome to The Sovereign Shift, the podcast for women ready to reclaim their voice, their nervous system, and their power in a world that demands they stay small. I'm Chelsea Eden Dubois, founder of The Sovereign Shift, creator of Woo Breathwork, and your guide on this breath-led journey into sovereignty of self, system, and spirit. Each episode, I sit down with powerful women, thought leaders, everyday revolutionaries, and allied voices to explore the real, raw, and radical path to embodied sovereignty. We talk about stress, burnout, addiction, motherhood, balance, sexuality, leadership, and breath-led spiritual awakening. And yes, we go deep into all things woo, the divine feminine, altered states of consciousness, intuition, ritual, and the parts of womanhood that have been exiled or dismissed as too much by patriarchal systems. Here, truth is medicine, breath is power, and your sovereignty, non-negotiable. Let's begin.
Hi, Chelsea. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Really good, thank you. Hey, thanks for this podcast. What you're doing is amazing things. Like you've created something that I'm sure that you didn't find existed, and it's wonderful. So thanks for creating this space for not just myself, but many people to tell our stories. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, you know what, so I'm sure you feel the same. Like sometimes something just happens and it's not like you really have a choice in the matter. I never expected
Mm.
to, never, not once. Like I'm a breathwork teacher and I have, a jobby job in like the real, in the quote unquote real world, right? The not as real world. And it's been just amazing to see so many
Mm.
beautiful souls just sort of show up and be like, can I be part of this? And I'm like, oh,
Mm.
amazing. Yes. So thank you for what you're doing because
Mm.
it's just inspiring. And I am just lucky to be able to play some small role in just helping get your message out there. So yeah,
Yeah, it's beautiful. I
I'm
mean, this
thanking
must
you.
Oh no, we're thanking each other, but yeah, that's the corporate world. It's like this is your creative outlet where you can have the real deep conversations, which you can't always have at work.
Oh,
So,
so true.
what do
So
you
true.
do? Where do you live? What car do you drive? It's just like, oh, it's just so much, isn't it?
It is. And it's just like the
Yeah.
soul yearns to dive deep into discussions with people that are real, that is
Yes.
beyond just the bullshit of the day to day. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention my show is labeled explicit, by the way, because sometimes bad words come out of my mouth.
Good. You're being real. That's the
Yeah.
realness of your podcast. You're being really real. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. But Jacintha, I'm really, really excited to dive into your story and your journey. So why don't we start there? I invite you to just riff and share with me your journey.
So I have always been a little bit different to most people. I was always the black sheep in my family, and I thought differently to other people, and that was kind of squished and squashed as I was growing up. I was always told that I was wrong, and I wasn't wrong. I just thought differently to other people, and that's okay. And then I was always a happy little girl, and then I think I just got squished a few too many times, and I wasn't able to feel my emotions or express my emotions back in that day. It was kind of eat concrete, harden up, you'll be right, get over it. And it wasn't just how I felt. I felt that I really needed to explore how I was feeling and all of these things. And I was in a domestically violent relationship when I was 17 years old. I didn't realize that at the time. It's just when I've done so much healing over the last couple of years and I'm like, wow, that was an absolutely domestically violent relationship. And I constantly blamed him for the way that he was when I never really looked at my own self and said, well, why are you accepting this?
Mhm.
That was something that I did is I accepted that behavior. And you've got to meet people where they're at. And there's a lot of people in this world that are broken, and we just need to keep ourselves safe, I guess. And so I left that relationship. I was single for about 7 years. I was in another relationship, and we had a child together. Um, And yeah, I mean, when I became a mum, it was just my absolute joy. It was such a incredible joy to be able to be a mother. Like being a mum is always something that I've wanted. And from the moment he was born, I was just like, I just want to be the best person that I possibly can be. And so I quit drinking. So I started IIN. I did like a integrative nutrition and holistic health coaching. And I learned as much about what we were putting in our bodies and on our bodies and how important it was and about our minds, etc. So I went and big deep dive into that. And then when my son was 18 months old, I um I went out drinking and I said, that's it, I'm done. I said I got really sick and my body rejected it. And I said, that's it, I'm done. And I've never drank since, and it's coming up to 10 years. So in 2019, 2020, we separated. My son started school and it was COVID all at the same time, and he was not okay. He was throwing bins around the house. He was running up the street. His emotions were so well beyond anything I could support at the time, which was just so sad to watch. And so I studied to become a family and child counselor, art therapist. I've studied play therapy. I'm a kids yoga teacher. So everything I needed at the time, I've learnt through my own healing. So all of these elements that I've had and so many different traumas, and that's just a few, have really put me on a path to healing, which is where I am now. And it's not an easy path. At some stage, I said, hey, just give me everything I need. And I did. I got it. But I think when you look with everything that's happened, it's made me so much stronger and so much. I have boundaries now. I'm very secure in my boundaries. I know what is okay and what's not okay. I know when somebody's mistreating me because I've done so much inner work on myself to be able to get there. So that's kind of a long-winded journey. And yeah, as a counselor, I am now developing an app, which is everything I was doing in practice for my child and for other children and families. And we do that through real role models that children will listen to. So that's kind of a little bit of my story.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I always like to start with that question because I find it just lays the foundation for us to go so many places and build
Yeah.
build this house together. I'm really there's a lot of stuff I want to unpack, but let's start with the motherhood journey.
Hmm.
When I also struggled with alcohol like my whole adult life because it was a coping mechanism for trauma, and I found that I took it into my motherhood journey because I hadn't resolved my trauma and I went through postpartum depression. But then once you sort out the drinking, that was a major catalyst because I quit drinking, and it becomes a major catalyst for one's healing and evolution, as it were. So
Mm.
talk to me a little bit about your motherhood journey and where in that journey you ended the relationship with alcohol.
Before I became pregnant, I was always slowing down. Like I didn't want to go out and party and drink anymore. It's just not who I wanted to be. 20 years ago, I saw a meditation teacher and she just got me to draw and she got me to draw and draw. And I was doing this in private away from a lot of my peers because it wasn't socially acceptable meditation back then or any form of meditation. So I had to do it in secret essentially. So I would wake up on a Sunday morning because I partied a lot. I really did. I had a really great time. I don't regret it in any means. I've met some wonderful people. I've had some really great fun, but it was just not the soul of who I was anymore. And I just didn't want that. I knew that there was so much more for me. Um, and so going into when I became pregnant, obviously I didn't drink during pregnancy. I was breastfeeding my son for 11 months. I think it was 11, I think maybe 12. And I, he just became my priority.
Yeah.
He became my priority, and I didn't want to be sick over a toilet bowl because I drank too much with my son. Like, it's just not who I wanted to be. So I was definitely slowing down for many years before that. But I think that was just the reason for me to start a new life. My partner at the time, he was still drinking and he didn't love the fact that I wasn't drinking, but I just had to choose myself. Like, I had to just choose me and a path that worked for me as a human being. And I think that was one of the first times in my life that I just said, no, I'm done. Like, I don't want, this is not what I want for my being as a human. And that was kind of challenging for me to stand out of the crowd because everyone I knew was, in Australia, we get a badge of honor for being the drunkest person in the room. Like, it's such a big thing here
Yeah. Okay.
to go against people and say, this is not what I wanted. And, I'm talking 10 years ago now. There's a lot of people that have quit drinking now, but 10 years ago, I was kind of like out on my own on an island going, I just don't want to do this. So I think that that took a lot of guts to be able to show up in a different way. But yeah, that was kind of where I started choosing myself and choosing my son and choosing that I wanted to be the best mum that I could be for him.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I know it's hard, right? Because we the reason I'm talking about alcohol is because I do as a trauma coping mechanism, like you said you're a counselor, you probably see it all the time. And there aren't enough conversations, I don't think, about just how many women struggle with it. And
Oh, absolutely.
fortunately, the conversation seems to be shifting. Like if you remember, how the culture around cigarette smoking changed dramatically, and
Mm,
it feels like we're going in that direction, fortunately. But you're right, like no matter what it is, when you take a stand against kind of the social norm or what your peers are expecting,
mm.
it gives so much tension in you, right? And when you have that special mission like your son, it almost makes that a little bit easier, but not really by degrees, right? Because it's still asking you to step up to a new level and become a new version of you.
Yeah, and when you become a mum, it can be very lonely. You're isolated for many years and the sleep becomes the priority and everyone just kind of taps out and goes and has a drink. And then when you don't have that, it's like, oh, okay. And so that time was definitely very lonely. Being a new mum and choosing that path for myself, it was challenging. I remember going to a bridal shower once and some guy was like, oh, well, it's just the way that you said it. I'm like, I don't know how else to say. I don't drink anymore. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be better than anyone else or anything. Like, I just don't want to do that for myself. And over time, I've realized that that person was quite triggered by the fact that maybe I was doing something that they couldn't, and that was very triggering for them. But it took me a long time to get there. Like, I have an abandonment wound, so it was just very like, oh my God, they're abandoning me, or they don't want to be friends with me, or they don't like me. I'm a ex people pleaser. And I think that when you realize that people's behavior has more to do with them rather than you, that's when you can learn compassion and empathy and just say, okay, well, that's not the path they're on and we're not aligned, and that's okay. It's okay not to be aligned to certain people.
So, what has your motherhood journey, I guess, taught you about healing and your own personal journey, I guess, and evolution?
My son has been my biggest, it has been the thing that I'm most proud of. I absolutely love being a mum, and he triggers me in ways that I've probably needed. You know, our kids are here to trigger us. Like that's their job. Their job is to come into the world and show us parts of us that we need to heal. And nobody does that better than a child who just says, "No, not doing that." And it's hard. But he's also taught me unconditional love, and he's taught me um, just many things about myself. And I think that has been such a beautiful journey as a mother, as a single mother. I haven't had much day-to-day help for the last 5 years with my son. I've done everything pretty much on my own. And before I thought I could never do that. Like I'd need somebody, or I was very conscious not to go into another relationship. I didn't want to just go back into a relationship and attract the same thing that I attracted in the past. It was really important to me to really heal, and it was important for him to heal as well. You know, he was broken. I was broken. We moved from Melbourne to Torquay just to heal, to be near the beach, to heal. And I've taught him a lot about feelings and emotions, and he's taught me a lot about patience and compassion and seeing the person that's right in front of me. Like when we moved to the surf coast, I was like, oh, we're going to be with nature and we're going to be on the land and everything's going to be wonderful. And that's not my kid. My kid has an engineering brain. He's very intelligent. He's very switched on. He was putting batteries in toys when he was 2 years old. Like that's just the way his mind works. He loves tech, loves gaming. And for a while there, I was like, no, 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 we're not doing the gaming piece. And, you know, that's a part of his soul and a part of who he is. He loves it. That's how he self-regulates. And that's when he feels powerful. And when he's winning in a game, it makes him feel like he's empowered. And I think that's important for our kids. So he's taught me so much. You know, I really protect and love him, but I allow him to be who it is that he is. I allow him to make choices.
Mm.
Um, Whatever he wants as a child, we kind of work it out together. He has a 3D printing business, and you know, he was like, "Oh, can you buy me this and this and this?" And I was like, "Well, why don't you start a business if you want all of these things, darling?" And so that's what he did. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think if we allow ourselves to, kids can teach us so much, but we have to be available and have ourselves available to learn from kids, because the that I'm the adult, you're the child just doesn't work as much anymore.
I'm so fascinated to hear your opinions on the topics of what it's like to raise children right now in the current technological shitstorm that we're entering into as well. Like as a mother myself, this occupies my thoughts, right? Like you're right to all these things. Like they become your little guru, and you're like, how do I just break generational cycles of trauma? How do I make sure that they're nurtured and loved? And also, how do we enter into this next phase of life together when as a millennial, we didn't grow up with AI. Like it's a whole new
Yeah.
world. So what are you seeing now for parents and kids?
This is a big topic of conversation at the moment, actually. I've written a few articles on this because technology is not the devil. It's what they're doing on technology that is the devil. And I think that that's really important to note. Technology can be amazing. YouTube can be amazing. It can also be extremely toxic, and there's hackers on there that are doing not very nice things. So I think when it comes to children, it's all in the education piece and making sure that we really educate our kids about the harms and the dangers, as well as how wonderful it can be as well. And I think that's by leading by example, because it's not going anywhere. We can avoid it. We can say, oh, yeah, you know, I'm just not going to let my kid on tech. Well, unfortunately, when they get to school, they might be behind on all of those things. So I think for me, it's definitely in the education. Have you watched the show Adolescence? Did that reach over to America? It was big
I
in
have,
Australia and the UK.
yeah,
You know,
yep.
it shows like adolescence that if we let our kids be on technology, we don't know what they're doing.
Hmm.
We have no idea. They close their doors, they're in another world. I think that's where the dangers lie, is when we're not educating our kids on the dangers of what can happen and they can think behavior's normalized. My son's watched some clips on YouTube at some stage in his life and he was talking about Diddy. And I said, "Do you know what
Mm.
that means?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, no, and I was like, "Darling, that's not good." So I think it's really important that we educate our kids rather than just say, "No, you can't have technology. I'm staying away from it." That's it. I think it's in the education piece, and that's what we're doing with Happy Souls Kids, a platform that I'm building is positive influences for kids to learn. Because there's some amazing programs out there, absolutely amazing programs. I think it just needs to be used in the right way because my son is so smart with technology, way smarter than me. Like even my podcasting equipment, he sets it all up for me and he loves it. Like it's his favorite thing to do.
Hmm.
But he is like 20 steps ahead of me when it comes to technology, because their brains are just so wired differently to ours.
Hmm.
So, I mean, you've got books like The Anxious Generation that talk about how scary it can be and being on tech and how we're on tech too much. And we all are. I mean, I'm definitely addicted to my phone, absolutely. And then I tell my child to get off his. So, a lot of it's through mirroring behavior, making sure that we are present with our kids when we're with them. There's studies that state that, if you even if you have 20 minutes of undivided attention with your children, that's what they need. And I think we've got to have balance between being out in nature, eating really good food, having connection with our kids, as well as some tech time. I always suggest to parents that if they're watching tech, like put it on the big screen so you can see what they're watching for a start, rather than the little devices that we don't know what they're on. Going into their world a lot is really important as well. So my son loves Nintendo, as much as I didn't want him to, he loves it, and he's
Hmm.
really good at it and it makes him feel empowered and that's how he self-regulates. And so I'll play with him. I love a game of Super Mario, or, there's a Donkey Kong game that we're playing at the moment. And so I go into his world, and I think that that's really important. When I first was a parent, I'm like, no, tech, no, 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 no. And that was taking a little bit away from my child. If we also don't let them on certain games, they feel isolated with their friends. And so that's an important piece as well, that there's certain games that I don't love, such as Roblox.
I've heard that from a few different people.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
son's behavior changed. He stayed up at midnight on a New Year's because he wanted a particular star. It was almost like he was addicted and he didn't, like, we go on a bike ride and he wanted to come home just so we could go on tech. And, that's not okay. And so you've got to really watch your children, what they're doing and what they're playing and how it affects their particular behavior, because it's the colors and it's the
Mm.
way that they're developing these apps. Some of them are great, like building a garden. Wonderful. Let's build a garden. I can't remember what Animal Crossing, I think it is. That game's
Okay.
wonderful. Let's build a garden. But the Roblox, there's hackers. I had to
Mm.
say to my son, like the average gamer out there is like 30 years old. So even though they're telling you they're a kid, they're not necessarily. So yeah, it really comes in the education, I think, because it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes, no, I really appreciate that. I was just, as a mom myself, just really curious to know your perspective on it because I agree with you. Tech's not going, it's not going anywhere. I think a lot of
Mm.
people are just they're afraid of AI, they're afraid of the hackers. It's not really the tech, it's really the people using the tech to a access your
Exactly.
child. I think that's really where the fear comes from because it's fucking terrifying, like when you think about it, right?
Terrifying.
Like what is actually going on online. Like the only real rule I have, well, we have a lot of rules, but no pictures of him online. Like that's just a
Mm.
no-no. And because you realize what's being done with these images in
Well,
various
I've
of the
always
web.
I've always put my son online, and I wrote a recent article for a magazine. And so I started really investigating why everyone's taking their kids offline, and it was shocking. Like they're grabbing pictures of kids and using them as porn in
Yeah.
AI. They're using geotags to locate where kids are. Like I took a photo of my son last week at the book club. There was book week here, and I put it in ChatGPT and it told me exactly where my son's school was. And I was horrified because I've always shared pictures of my child online thinking, oh, yeah, it's wonderful and it's so cute. It's such a great image and not thinking about the dangers. And the more and more I learn, the more I want him off. I said to him, he said to me just yesterday, why do you want me off social media? And I said, darling, it's just so much hackers at the moment. I need to do a lot more investigation. At the moment, I don't feel safe with you being online. We went to the footy on the weekend and I put up a picture of me, but I put a cat on his face and he was horrified. He's like, I look ugly. Don't put that on. And I was like, okay, we're not going to do that either. And it's working out the boundaries of everything. In saying that, Chelsea, when they're at a certain age, we've got a we've got under 16s, we've got social media ban for under 16s in Australia.
Really interesting.
Um, I mean, there's a lot of talks around why that's happening, whether it's the digital ID, whether that's the reality of what's actually happening. It's scary to know why they're doing that. They're masking it as something that's really positive, but is it? So that's where the conversations go a little bit deeper. But kids are savvy. And if you don't let your kid on social media and they want to connect to their friends, they're going to do it anyway. So
Hmm.
this is where the piece is coming in. Like I just need to educate my son now and the decisions that he makes when he's younger. Hopefully, when he goes out into the world with himself, like, in high school, he might get a phone. I'm not sure yet. I don't really want him to. He has a watch. That's enough for me. They're all questions that we've got moving forward. So yes, we can just take our kids off social media and do all of those things, but when they're with their friends later on, they might put themselves back up. So it's just making sure that we have open conversations with our children and making them aware of the dangers and making them aware of what can happen. And yeah, so then they hopefully make informed decisions later in life. And that's where I am with my son. He's off social media at the moment. And that's where I feel safe. And I've never been like that before. He's 11 years old. I've shared him everywhere. I might put an image of the back of him, post it later when we're not at the place. But yeah, it's a definite scary world, as you were saying, a clusterfuck.
Yeah, yeah, truly. And I definitely don't like to take a fear-mongering approach to anything. It's more just being aware, right? Because like when you're a
Mm,
mom, there's so much shit that you are trying to balance anyway, right? Because you're a caregiver, you're trying to
mm,
make sure that they're eating, right? That they're sleeping and doing all these things and protect them. Children, there's a reason why they just seem to want to just get themselves into shit all the time because they're exploring. And I got myself grounded so hard in grade 12 because I went and bought myself one of the first cell phones. They didn't want me to have them back then. And now I realize that was kind of a foreshadowing thing, right? Because now everyone's got cell phones and we're all addicted to them and that kind of thing. Again, I don't think necessarily demonizing tech is the thing because technology has always evolved. It's always come in and shifted the world and changed the way
mm,
we consume information, the way we communicate with each other, right? Like, thank God, because we wouldn't be able to have this conversation now.
mm,
But the one of the issues that I've always found with social media is that it's completely unregulated. It's completely
mm,
unregulated. And when things move faster than government, you get into trouble. Now, one could say like, okay, well, there's risk for regulation too, right? Because then you wander into the censorship and that big bad conversation. But at the end of the day, if children are being harmed and
mm,
they're hurting themselves over this technology,
mm,
we need to identify or examine it and look deeper into it so that we can hopefully stop this phenomenon from occurring. And you know who's going to make that
mm.
shift? It's mums.
Yeah, I mean, I can't understand why I will go into Bunnings or Walmart, as you have it over there, somewhere like that, and I will even look at a shovel and I will be stalked on social media for that particular shovel. So why is our algorithms able to do that, but when there's bullying happening within our kids or protecting our kids, it's non-existent? So what on earth is going on
Hmm.
where we they can't protect our kids. Like they should be able to have the tools to be able to protect them, and they're not. So why is that happening? So they're all questions that I have and that I'm exploring at the moment because It's scary for our children.
100%. And especially someone like you who you're moving into technology. You're
Yeah.
creating an app. Like
Yeah.
these are questions that you are probably. Let's actually dive into your app right now and talk about it a little bit about what inspired that, how it's going, and the kinds of things that you're thinking about as it's evolving.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, technology is not the devil. It's just what we do on technology. So I was in practice with one of the kids and I said, "Hey, do you want to do some meditation?" He just rolls his eyes at me like, "Whatever, lady." I said, "You know, LeBron James meditates," and instantaneously he wanted to meditate straight away. So I saw the influence that I have over kids in practice. And then I saw that influence again with people that they look up to. And I thought that was so amazing that they could have that influence because to get a child to meditate, like my child is way too active to be able to meditate. Whereas if he had a game that he was playing that included meditation, he would do it there. So it really has turned into a gamified app, which teaches kids lessons through storytelling of their unique athletes to be
Mhm.
able to teach them the lessons that I know that they've learned that we all know as adults, but as kids, and we do that through gamified learning. So I think, what would be fun for your child to learn in that way? Now, our target market it was 5 to 12, but we've changed it a little bit more to 8 to 12,
Mhm.
so a little bit older. So we're going for kind of the primary school kids, the older primary school kids, because they're starting to do a lot of sports, etc. They're finding losing games hard, self-regulation's really big for them. Everyone talks about the regulation for little kids. It still exists for older kids as well. And so it's giving them the tools to be able to go through life and work out that, oh my gosh, my body, my soul, my breath is like an air conditioner for my body. Like how
Mhm.
wonderful that we can use that at any time. And so I worked out what would best help my child to learn, and it's through gamification. Like he loves gamified apps, and it's not just for kids, it's for the parents and kids to do together. So in moments of dysregulation, they can go, "Oh, remember what Archie told us? Like we can do that in that moment." That's really important. Like, remember what we were told in that story? Let's try that in real life. The other part, actually, won't say that yet because it's kind of up our sleeve, but we don't want kids to be on technology. Absolutely, we don't. But they have their place. This can be 5 minutes a day as you do at the dinner table together, learn some lessons, let it go and then start again the next day or in the next couple of days. So it's meeting kids where they're at and speaking a language that they understand. And as much as we don't like it, that is a language they love. And so if that's what gets the points across to them, wonderful. Let's utilize that in the way that we think is helpful for kids.
I really love that. I'm a breathwork guide myself, and I created just a series of breathwork stories for children as well.
Beautiful.
Because it's interesting, like from your perspective, what is different when it comes to kids, children?
Mhm.
What is different about their emotional regulation, their physical regulation, or I like to call it sometimes the rewilding of our nervous system. So what unique challenges are present in our children that maybe we're not actually dealing with as adults?
Bullying is a really big one with school. How can you teach your child how to support, how to stand up to a bully? It's like, well, we never did,
No.
so how can we possibly be telling our kids how to? And I think
Yeah.
that these are all the beautiful lessons that we need to learn as humans is that, there's we need the tools to be able to support our kids. And it's really hard for parents to support children through self-regulation when they don't even know how to regulate themselves.
Oh, so true. Yeah.
If you haven't done the work to be able to regulate you, how on earth are you going to do the work to be able to regulate your child?
Mhm.
And I think that that's a really important point to make that we need to work on ourselves first so we can show up for our kids in the best way possible. But if we haven't done the work, we can't hold that space for them because as a kid, I know I was told eat concrete, harden up, you'll be right, get over it, stop being a baby, all of these things that we were told. So we drop our feelings and our feelings get put down, and then we drink alcohol and they're put down further, and then we go out and partying and they're put down further, or maybe it's food. Sugar's a big one with me. And we use all of these vices to be able to regulate our body because we've never been taught how. So, teaching our kids, it comes from modeling behavior for a start. Let's model to our kids how to process feelings. Like it was just, I've been moving through some big stuff lately because I've been sick. And I went to the park the other day with my son. It was quite dark and I just cried. And I just cried and I cried and I cried. And sometimes that's what we need. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with us. Like we've got to let our feelings out of our body. And I was like, hey, mate, I'm just not myself at the moment. I'm just moving through some big stuff. I just want you to know I love you dearly. You mean so much to me. It's not you. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just mummy's got some big stuff inside. And he came up to me and he's like, that's okay, mum. You just let everything out that you need to. Is there anything that you need in this moment? Like, what is it? Do you need a hug? Do you need to pet our dog? Like, what is it that you need in these moments? And that's happened through mirroring behavior that I've taught my child that it's okay to feel, that it's okay to feel your emotions, and he accepts those emotions. Sometimes when I'm grumpy, he'll say, Mummy, you're grumpy, go for a run. So I think when it comes to our kids, we need to work on ourselves first. And that piece of the puzzle is really important. So whether that's breath work, whether that's meditation, whether that's journaling, whether that's, I'm started doing this little Tai Chi thing before bed. Like what do we need in our bodies to be able to show up for the best parents that we can be? Because that models to our children how they can be. And sometimes that's at the dinner table saying, Hey, Dad, how was your day? And you're like, you know what? I didn't have a nice day today. I had a contract fell through and I got really disappointed and I was a bit frustrated. Oh, really? How'd you deal with that? I went for a really big walk and I cleared my head and I yelled into a pillow and I came home and I screamed in the car and then I felt better. And, that models to children that sometimes they're not feeling good and that's okay. And I think that that's an important piece of the puzzle is that, yeah, to work on, to be able to support our children and hold space for them, it actually starts with us.
Yes. Oh, yeah, so true. And I'm curious, you are holding space for so much. You're a single mom
Mm,
and you've got a startup. Is
mm.
what else do you do?
And I have a practice, so I see kids in my practice.
Yeah.
It's mainly online at the moment, just because I'm so busy with my startup. And yeah, I've held a space for a lot of people, and I think that was part of my breaking down over the last few weeks. It was just like, whoa, I hold so much for everybody, and I just needed to start holding space for myself. Separation's tough, co-parenting's tough. It is tough. And unless you've experienced it, you never understand how tough. Like my child, if I'm distant with him, he'll jump in my bed to be close to me. Like last night, he kicked me in the face, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. If I don't sleep, I get really grumpy. And, it's important that we have that outlet. And so this last week, I actually went away to Torquay. I had a house there, and I just said, would you mind if I just stayed on my own for a week? And I had time to myself. And I think that's really important for us humans, no matter what stage you're in, whether you're separated or you're not, or you need to have time for yourself. And it's okay to say, hey, I'm not okay right now. I just need to be away and recharge my batteries. That for me is being close to the beach and nature. And like that makes me so happy. And that's what we often need sometimes is just space to be able to process what is happening for us inside. Because we don't always get it right. Sometimes we say silly things or we don't show up in the right way. And it's important that we recognize and take accountability for that. Like, I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is that I can take accountability. I never used to be able to, but
Mm.
I can say, yep, I understand. I can see your point of view and I understand how that doesn't work. Whereas most people can't take accountability. Like I've had friendship breakdowns over time and I'll receive things from them as like, you're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem. And as soon as I see that, I run. Like, no,
Mhm.
no, 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 no. This is a joint thing. Like, if we can't sit down and have a conversation about this and we can't clear the air, that's not friendship, Like we need to be able to say, yeah, I understand your point of view, and thank you so much for expressing that to me, and I will do better as a human. because of what you've informed me. But so many people are so scared of accountability and they're so scared of confrontation. I had a friend once that said, it's just drama. I'm like, no, it's communication. Like we've got to communicate with each other how we're feeling, not just you're bad, I'm good, and that's the end of it. We need to be able to express to people what's happening for us inside. And if there's a problem, let's talk about it. Let's release it. Let's hear everyone's point of view and move on. It doesn't mean that one person's right or one person's wrong. It means that we just both see things from a different perspective, and that's okay.
It sounds like you're modeling like a really amazing way of being with your son.
Yeah. And I don't always get it right, but I can say, hey, I didn't act as my best self then, and I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
And so being able to do that with my child, I can now do that with adults. Or I will say, like, rather than give someone silent treatment, hey, I need a couple of days to process this, but
Yeah.
actually being honest about that. Or, um, hey, there's something on my mind at the moment. Can we sit down and talk about it? And the amount of people that will say no is surprising. Like they don't
Really?
want to talk about it. They just want to sweep it under the rug, pretend it's not there, and get on with life. And I think sometimes it's important to talk about some things. Not always. Jimmy in Relationships is a really great one on Instagram for people to follow. He does it really, really well, especially in a relationship perspective of teaching people both sides of the circumstance and how to act differently in those moments. And I love that. Like, I love in friendships, in relationships, in family dynamics, I haven't always got it right. And I'm always learning to show up in a different way. And I think that's where the power is that if we're open and willing to learn rather than I just need to be right all the time, that's where the magic is.
Hmm. Yeah, relationships as mirrors are such a
Oh,
difficult and difficult, trying yet powerful way of seeing ourselves truly,
yeah.
right, through the lens
Yeah.
of another human. Because I think
Mm,
you've mentioned that you've been through that journey with relationships, and I believe you're co-parenting now, if that's right.
mm.
How's that journey for you?
Oh, it's so challenging. It is definitely the piece. I just never had expected this to be so challenging. Like when we first separated, I was like, hey, we've got a conscious uncoupling course. Can we do that together? And that wasn't well received. And the biggest thing with co-parenting is I've had to surrender. Like I love being a mom. Like I can't imagine not being there for my child. Like I would drive 5 hours to see him for 5 minutes. Like that's just my personality and who I am. And not everyone's not, they're not like me, they will avoid certain circumstances. And I work with lots of separated couples, so I've seen a lot, and it is hard. It's hard, and often the mother gets blamed for things when she hasn't actually done anything. But it's just much easier. There's a guy called JD Milo, I think his name is, and he brought up by a single mum. And he perfectly articulates so much of what happens in the co-parenting dynamic of somebody will say, they won't let me see their kids. And they're like, what are you talking about? I've never stopped you from seeing your kids. You've just told me that you're busy on the last 3 weekends and I couldn't fit in with your 4 till 6 on a Sunday because we had something on.
Hmm.
You know, it's tough, but it's certainly taught me strength. It's taught me to stand in my own power and my own boundaries and to not be reactive. I think surprisingly, I'm not reactive now, whereas I was before. I will sit on something for a couple of days if I need to before responding. I'll always go to ChatGPT and say, can you say this in a nicer kind of way to my co-parent rather than being reactive? You have to be very careful what you put in writing when it comes to co-parenting because it can come back on you. And I've always been quite good with that, not always actually, but and if I do have a moment, I just breathe into it and just forgive myself, because it's really hard, and I just wish that more parents and couples would put their kids first.
Mm.
I just wish it was more about the children and what the children's needs are, but it becomes this bitter fight, which it doesn't always need to be. Just be nice and kind to each other. It's really not that hard. Just be nice. Like that is the mother or father of your child that is looking after your kid. You want them to be the best person that they can be. You want to look after them. You don't want to put any more stress onto them because that stress goes through the parent and to the child. Why can't we just Why can't we just come from a more compassion and empathy and from a better place of love rather than the constant fights that happen within the co-parenting? Um, then you've got the courts, then you've got the legal fees. It's just always so much. And I just think that it's not always necessary.
Hmm. And what would you say, well, for yourself, I'm curious to know how you nurture yourself through this process and what you would say to someone else going through this as well that maybe hasn't stepped into self-care or emotional regulation or rewilding and that kind of thing to get themselves back to a healthier state of being.
Learn to spend time on your own. Learn to journal and have a conversation with yourself about what's working because your mind is like a garbage truck. Find one to two people that you can tell everything to, and that you trust wholeheartedly. You don't need to tell everyone everything. I did because I was like, oh, I want people to love me. I want people to love me. And they don't always. In fact, you become a burden. So find the people that that you really trust within your circle and that you can tell everything to. Making sure that you find something that really lights up your soul. I found surfing when I was 40. I got into the water and I was scared of sharks before, and I had to kind of move through that. Find something that really makes you happy inside. And that could be anything. It could be knitting, it could be walking the dog, it could be riding your bike, whatever it might be. Just find that element, roller skating, find that joy within yourself because when you don't have your children, really focusing on what they're doing at the other person's house is not helpful and beneficial to you.
Mhm.
In fact, what they do at the other parent's house is actually none of your business. And I know that that's really hard to hear because it was when I heard it too. Just make sure that you really find something within yourself, especially when you get your kids. The transitions can be really tough. It's like going from Pluto to Mars. There's often a lot of breakdowns during that process. So when you don't have your kids, making sure that you're solid for them. And that could even be watching Netflix. Sometimes we just need to break to do nothing.
Mhm.
Um, I used to be against Netflix so much until I separated, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, if I sit and watch, I actually like recuperate, and I I feel better because sometimes as single parents, that's what we need. So I think, yeah, just really loving who you are as a person and accepting and loving every part of yourself is just really important for us.
And so we talked about how much space you're holding for so much. So that I just want to go back to Happy Souls Kids again because that must be taking up such a significant amount of time. But when something is significant like that, it's driven by a very, very profound purpose, no
Mm.
doubt. Talk to me a little bit about what's next for you? Like, where are you going with this beautiful app you're creating?
Yeah, I mean, it's a prototype at the moment, so we've got lots of beta testers. If you'd like to be one, please contact me at hello@happysoulskids.com. My purpose is to support children, children and dogs as well. Like they have my heart, and I wish I knew all of these lessons that I now know as an adult, as a child. My life would have been so different. And I want to create something, and I am creating something, and my son is my unofficial co-founder that I wanted as a child, and that I can see that he needs as a child. And I think when we live from a place of purpose, that's when the doors open for us. It's not an easy process building a startup. It's not. But I mean, we want it to be a global app. We don't just want to stay in Australia. We want it to be global, available to lots of different people. And I've been lucky to collaborate with lots of different businesses that are on the same page at the moment. We are having really great discussions. I've got a business that works on cybersecurity for children and another one that's just, we're just working out how to speak to kids in the language that they understand, and it's really beautiful. So where do I go to from here? Um, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, my 5-year plan is to really have Happy Souls Kids as a global app to be able to be the leaders in the field of to being able to support children and families. I mean, the basis of what we do at Happy Souls Kids is building connection within the parent-child dynamic. So it's building that beautiful relationship with parent and child, which I think is at the forefront of everything that we do.
Oh, I love that so much. I'll make sure that your contact information is included as well in the show
Thank
notes.
you.
So you're looking for beta testers, is that right?
Yeah. We're
Okay.
looking for beta testers. And if there's any athletes that you have connections to, please get in contact because we'd love to talk to them. Yeah, just starting with athletes, we're obviously going to expand from there, but anybody that you think that your child would listen to and really absorb that information from, we want to hear from them.
I want to know if the Wiggles meditate.
It's a really good question. And that's why our target market is kind of 8 to 12 because yeah, the 5 to 8 and even less is Wiggles, is Bluey, etc. So
Yeah.
it's a really good question, and I will get back to you on that one, Chelsea. I will contact them and ask if if that's something that they're interested in. Because yeah, I mean, it's different kids. For some kids, it's YouTubers. So we're just finding the right people at the moment, which is really exciting.
There should be no end in sight for all of the different influencers and different folks out there that children look up to, right? That are in the cultural zeitgeist that you could probably tap into. That's actually really
Yeah,
exciting when you think about it, right?
yeah, it
Because
is.
you're right. They don't care if mom meditates because that's not cool.
No, exactly. I mean, it does help when they get older to realize why mum was so calm or why she wasn't so calm. Um, but yeah, like it is definitely better received from somebody of that light.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, Jacinta, I have to thank you so much for your presence and for your energy today. And is there, before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners that maybe we haven't touched on?
Just to tell parents that you're enough, that parenting is not an easy thing to do. So if you're finding it challenging, just know that that's part of the journey. To really trust your kids, like really listen to what they're saying. We've got a lot happening with childcares in Australia at the moment, and there's some horrific things that have been happening. And if your child doesn't feel safe somewhere, they're going to let you know. So just trust them, trust our kids because as parents, we're just trying to do the best that we possibly can for them and know that you are enough and you have everything inside of you and that it's okay to take a break when you need to.
Hmm. Thank you for that. I think as moms, we need to hear that more often.
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
yes.
well, thank you again so much. I wish you nothing but the best for your app. I think it's going to be, it sounds amazing. So
Thank
I
you.
can't wait to see what happens with it in the near future.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for having me, Chelsea. Really appreciate you.
Thanks. Thanks for being here. If something's stirred within you today, that's not an accident. It's a shift. To go deeper, visit thesovereignshift.ca, where you'll find breathwork audios, resources, mini courses, workshops, and programs to support your reclamation, body, mind, and soul. Like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, your breath is your power. Your truth is your compass. Your sovereignty is the revolution. Until next time, stay sovereign.